Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lowdown. Today, I am delighted to be joined by the President and CEO of United City Football Club, that is Eric Gottschalk. United City Football Club are one of Asia's biggest powerhouses at the moment and most recently won the 2020 Philippine Championship. Eric, welcome to the show.
Connor, good morning to you and thank you very much for having me.
The pleasure. Eric, we begin every podcast by asking everyone as to where their love and passion for football originate. With you, it's no different. Off camera, we spoke about you being a big Hamburg fan, unfortunately, tethering away in the Bundesliga too at the moment. But tell me, where did this love begin?
But just going back to this Hamburg thing, it's very easy because I'm not competing with anybody. So any discussion I have, people are with Manchester United or with Bayern Munich or with Barcelona. So when I say I'm Hamburg, I'm always neutral. So I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I'm not competing with anybody. So it's a good place to be in, but they should be doing a little bit better. Passion for football, to be very honest, initially it was, I started off with football as a kid. My dad was my coach in our youth teams. But I became very quickly a tennis player. And for a while, I've done both at the same time. Tennis then got me through university and through college and everything. And the love for football at that stage pretty much just remained as being, a spectator and following the professional football. Business-wise, football has taken center stage, which now basically highlighted last year with taking over a professional football club in Southeast Asia. And so the understanding of football and obviously the love for the game and following it has always been the same. But initially it was really the small tennis ball before it became more like the bigger balls now.
It's terrific to hear. And I suppose being the main topic we're going to discuss today, how did you exactly come into your current role at United City Football Club?
There's been a long history with me working in the Philippines. I'm resident still in Dubai, as you know, and we started organizing in 2009, 10, 11, the friendly matches and the training camps of the national team. There was a German coach, he reached out to us, and that's how we started the connection. So we had done, I don't know, at least 10 or 15 international friendly matches against Australia. We even had an official friendly with the UAE. We had Ivory Coast. We brought the team to Qatar. So they played against some club teams in Qatar. So that was really the initial stages of building a relationship with the Football Federation. Over the last few years, we hosted a football business conference in the Philippines. We're working with the Football Federation on a membership program, and there have been a lot of connections. And we've been part of the professional league, which is now in place for the last 3 years, on and off in different roles. Last year, the powerhouse of the Philippines and of Southeast Asia, Ceres Negros, unfortunately had financial troubles due to the global pandemic. The team decided, or the management decided, to close the doors. They wanted to abandon the club and everything. And I was approached by the federation and asked if there's any way that we can somehow rescue the team or if we can do something with it. And I got a few friends together, and we decided it's worth the investment and the time. So last year in July, we committed for taking over the team. We re-signed almost all of the players that were under contract, and we decided to just give it a shot. And so that's how I ended up with it. Me being on the ground in the Philippines, setting up the team, setting up the club, and what has started just for looking at one season has now become almost a full-time project with very, very ambitious long-term goals.
And Eric, you look at the probably most common methods of acquiring a club. You look at that process between due diligence and the official acquisition of the club. Of course, I mean, your ownership group and the acquisition under tenuous circumstances. What exactly did that process look like for you guys between due diligence and official acquisition? I'd I'd understand it was probably a lot more expedient than normal circumstances taking over a club.
Yes, what came quite handy is that my partners and I, we've been involved with Philippine football for such a long time. So we know the ins and outs of the clubs, the federation and the league, and it's still a very virgin market. So when we're talking an acquisition of a club, it basically means the acquisition of a team, because the clubs in the Philippines at the moment are just starting to build their infrastructure. So they don't own the stadium, for instance. Some of them have academies, but you know, all of the what makes the European club a real club is at this stage not fully developed in the Philippines. So the due diligence process is basically you manage the risk, you evaluate how much sponsorship money you can maybe generate. What's the cost of the players? Are you going to be competitive on a local level and possibly on an Asian level? And then you put it in a very basic P&L and you say, well, it's worth doing it or not. Our process was a bit different. 2 years ago, we identified that the Philippines, I mean, it's a country with what, 110 million people. The national team is actually quite successful. They're very skilled on the football pitch. Philippines in the early 1900s used to be the powerhouse of football in Asia. I mean, the AFC was founded in the Philippines. Alcantara used to be the all-time leading goal scorer for FC Barcelona until a few years ago when Messi finally topped his goal scoring record. So there's a lot of football history in the country, and it just needed unlocking. And we made a presentation 2 years ago at a conference, and we basically said, if the football clubs are able to create assets and to create match day revenues, football would grow and would become much more sustainable. And we pitched for everybody should have a house. You need a house, you need a stadium, you need to be a place where your fans can come and watch your matches. And it was really a big pitch, but nobody really took it up. And it's a bit frustrating because you see it in front of your eyes and then you realize that maybe your audience might not be ready for it yet, for whatever reasons. And when this opportunity with Ceres Negros came about, Ceres just won 3 national titles in a row. They had 8 national team players on their roster, and they were leading in the AFC Cup, the group stages. So we were poised to progress quite far within the AFC Cup. And we said, okay, if we acquire the club, we could actually make a statement and set an example of how football should develop in the Philippines. And that was really our driver. It was not of helping the players and winning a national championship. It's really to set a template or a blueprint of how football in the Philippines can look like. And it's all based on us creating a real club, meaning transitioning a team into a club, building a stadium, building a youth academy, having match day revenues from merchandising, having food and beverage available, sell tickets, you know, all the very basic stuff that makes a club a real club. And that's our ambition, and that's where we came from. So the acquisition and the due diligence was more into what's the opportunity, is the time right, and can we pull this off? And that was really more the decision making behind it, because on the financial side, we're talking relatively no numbers. We're not talking, you know, the tens of millions or the millions of dollars that you have with other club acquisitions. So at that stage, it was literally 45 people, which is staff and players, making sure that salaries can be paid over the next 1 year, and then see how can we develop and how can we bring other parties to the table to really create a blueprint for Philippine football.
Fantastic. It's terrific insight. On my
It's a long answer. Sorry for that.
Oh, no, it's brilliant. I mean, I've multiple questions now for you. But
here we go.
It's a loaded question on my part, because I think if you were to have a book, let's say, for first-based principles in buying a football club, you've immersed yourself in the Philippine football market over these past 10 years. So when you guys initially took over the club, of course, that was your due diligence. You had put in 10 years of work on the ground level of getting to know the market and its big players, United City Football Club, who were just one of a small handful of those. But Does it shock you then as a European football fan too, Eric? Although it's different, of course, in Germany with the 50+1 rule. But when you see investors, be them from North America, be they European, when they go and take over a club, they try to impose their own rules, their own vision, without taking into account the groundwork, without taking into account the fans, the infrastructure, and if that's going to be a viable commercial practice at all. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, and it's a very good question from your side. I mean, obviously, in every market you're going to step in, you cannot just roll it out from something else, what you've seen somewhere else. So to bring in a European model or an American model into the Philippine markets would not work. We all know this. Again, I mean, with me being in the country for in and out for the last 10 years, it allows me to have probably a much better understanding of what's needed. Very important here is we're competing with basketball, and we need to build a fan community. And fan community means you need to be present on the ground. It means you need to have an academy, you need to have kids play football, wear your shirts, you need to have the players available, people need to know the players. And that's really the most important thing that we're trying to set up at the moment, is that we're on the ground and trying to get a community, a football community set up here in the Philippines for getting an interest in football.
Because I've took a look on the website the last few days, and you can see in bold letters on it, the vision of the club is to be the best of the best in Asia, be it on the football pitch or within the community, and to provide equal opportunities for the next generation of young talent. So what does that look like on a day-to-day basis, Eric? We've just spoken about it. It's not really the tangible stuff, the stuff that you can measure. How many kids are wearing your jerseys? What does that look like, and what is the process behind it on a day-to-day basis?
Well, if you put it in tangible numbers, being the best in Southeast Asia means you're topping the ranking in Southeast Asia. We did it last year already. We want to remain there. We haven't played enough matches so that our ranking dropped a little bit, just due to the fact that we didn't play in Asia and we didn't play enough competitive matches. So we can always put a measure on that one, saying, okay, once we top the Asian ranking, we are the best team. The second thing is being in the community. It might not be as measurable as you said, but you know, we can measure it based on followers on our social media pages. We can measure it in terms of, you know, what's the engagement level. Again, we've gone from 0 to now 30,000 people on the Facebook page, and within the next 3 months we should reach about 100,000 people, just based on how the numbers are growing and the content that's available. And so I think we would be able to measure it at some point, because if we are the most active on social media, we can compare ourselves to the other clubs. If we are topping the rankings and so on, then obviously we can easily say that we are the best team performance-wise. When it comes down to equal opportunity, it's also very simple. We're setting up a men's team, but at the same time, we're also focusing on setting up a women's team. So getting and recognizing that women's football is a very, very fast-growing sport. We're putting a lot of resources into making sure that we're starting recruiting female players already. And that's where the equal opportunity comes in. So we want to have a men's team that's competitive. We want to have a women's team that's competitive. It's the same on our staffing. So we have employed quite a few female staff. So we want to make sure that the quota is there and that we're really giving everybody a chance, regardless of race or nationality or gender, to be part of this organization.
And crucial to the organization, of course, is the fans. Crucial to any organization involved in sports, Eric. Of course, being on the ground in the Philippines for the past 10 years, since United City Football Club, I suppose, came into its inception. Unfortunately, COVID has hit, fans being impacted too, can't attend games. But prior to acquiring the club, what would you say the fan culture looks like in the Philippines? We know how big the global game is in Asia, but I suppose on a micro level, on a domestic level, could you take us inside the common match day experience, I suppose, in the Philippines?
Yeah, and this is really one of the main issues, because the teams or the clubs are not present in their home markets. Matches over the last years have always been played at centralized venues. So there's a venue been rented, and then you have a double header, and nobody really has a home game. So building up a fan community is something that, again, is, as you said correctly, is at the forefront of everything. We need to get people excited, but we need to give them a place where they can actually come and enjoy the football of the team that they are supporting, which in this case is United City. And that's why we're building a stadium, so that this space is available. Match day experiences, again, it looked more like that teams are playing each other, very competitive teams, but tickets were usually free of charge. T-shirts have usually been given away. Matches been shown irregularly on TV, regularly on live streams and social media through your YouTube or Facebook channels. So these are the things that everybody is committed to changing. I mean, the league has only been, the professional league is recognized by the AFC, but we're only now going into our 4th season. But these are the things that everybody is aware of, and that's what we need to improve on. Match day experience, absolutely key. I mean, you want to have a venue where you have several thousand people can come in, they can cheer for their team, yeah, this is what makes football. That's where the love of the game comes from, and this is something that we still need to develop here in the Philippines.
I'm curious too, Eric. You know, it's going to be very popular given what's happened, unfortunately, this week in the European game. But the fan base, of course, since your ownership group has gone in, you've done wonderful things. You've taken over the club who were on the brink of financial collapse. But how did the fan base originally react when you went in and, of course, changed the name of the club from Ceres Negros to United City Football Club? Was it welcomed?
Of course, I mean, there's always the group of people that cherish change and they see it as an opportunity, and there's a lot of people that are extremely negative. And then you have the traditionalists, the real hardcore fans who are just afraid that somebody's taking something away. And we've seen it with the announcement of the European Super League. I mean, there was not even a discussion really on the league. Immediately, the fans went against it because they felt like something is taken away. They're so passionate about it. So when a club that has been around for such a long time, winning 3 championships and having all the favorite players, and then suddenly, you know, a white boy from Germany comes in and takes over the club, and then dares to change the name, people are not really asking for too many reasons. There's obviously a lot of criticism until you prove your case. We had to change the name for 2 reasons. Number one, the name Ceres is a commercial name for a bus company. And under AFC, new clubs are not allowed to carry the name of a sponsor any longer. You still have in some Japanese clubs, or even in Thailand and in Korea, obviously some clubs still, you know, having a name of Toyota something or Kawasaki something. But for new clubs, this is not allowed anymore. So that was the first thing, that we had to take the name Ceres off. Secondly, the owners of Ceres did not want to really be associated with football and with what we are doing, for very obvious reasons, because they also don't know what we're doing with it. So we all agreed that the name Ceres has to diminish. Since we were looking for a place where we're going to house our team, where we're going to build our fan community, and we didn't want to rush into a decision of where our home city is going to be based, we put a generic name in there, which basically means we wanted to have a United something football club. And because we want to have a city fan base, we needed to have a placeholder. So that's where the name United City came from, but it's basically a placeholder. It's United somewhere football club. And we have now identified this location. We're going to make an announcement in early May. And then the name city will be replaced with the town that will then be our chosen ground for our stadium and for our home base. People were very critical about it. A lot of jokes, you know. I mean, you have now Manchester United and then Manchester City, and, you know, City, United City. You know, there's been a lot of jokes floating around. What an ugly name, terrible name. Why? But I think the name has grown on people, and they now understand why we're doing it. The fans, especially the ultras from Ceres, obviously initially were very, very skeptical. But once they saw that our intentions are right, meaning the first thing we did is we made sure that we kept all the players, regardless of performance level or salary, whatever it was. We wanted to keep that team intact. And the fans, in the end, they went in supporting, the players, and they just adopted a new name. So at the moment, we don't have any issues whatsoever. There's no more criticism in the media about our name or what we're doing. They're just extremely excited about the prospect of having a very competitive team that is now actually playing in the AFC Champions League. And the football community is extremely united in following us and supporting us, because they wish us well once we play and representing the Philippine colors in the AFC Champions League. So it's been a little bit of a journey initially, but I think we overcame it with results and with good intentions.
I think that's testament to the organization and to the ownership too. And if I may add, Eric, that you look, I suppose, at the most ardent of fans, and in a way, you've placated them. You're in a position now 9 months later where you speak about, for example, on your website, your mission statement is about equal opportunities. You've done so for men and women, having a women's team now, or about to launch a women's team. You're in constant liaison with fan groups. I suppose, whilst liaising with these fan groups, was there any assurances they wished from your side as to where the club is in 5 to 10 years? Because we've seen this so many times, not necessarily in Asia, but in Europe, in North America from time to time, where when the going gets tough, you see a lot of owners who originally they would have taken over a club, be using it originally as a plaything. They would have used it as maybe a soft geopolitical power. The motives weren't all great upon acquiring a club. It's safe to assume that's not the same in your case. You've taken over the club that was on the brink of insolvency to help. But what assurances have you given to fans that essentially the same scenario which played out last year and so publicly in the Philippine football community does not happen again?
Obviously, there are no assurances because we don't really know what's happening. And Ceres Negros would have probably never folded without the pandemic. The owners, they're employing more than 30,000 people through their bus company. There was no transportation available. And, it's just a matter of priorities of what you do with the money available. If you put it into football, which is not being played, or if you're going to pay the salaries of 30,000 employees and their families. So it was a little bit unfortunate what happened with Ceres, and it was an opportunity for us. Assurance, we can't give an assurance. I mean, what we told the fans, or basically we didn't even have to tell the story, because the Football Federation, the Football League, they went out and they gave the blessing for this deal. They approached us and they felt comfortable that we are doing the right things. And for us, this was much more important, that the stakeholders within football, that they feel comfortable with where we are and what we're doing. Again, I'm a foreigner. Yes, I understand the game from playing to the business side of things, and a lot of things that we're doing is very new. I'm sure there are some people and some talks behind our backs, because we are challenging everybody. We're not stepping on anybody's toes. We're not imposing what we are trying to do to anybody. But if they see that within 2 months, we have 30,000 followers on our fan page, and clubs who've been around for 15 years have 5,000 followers on their fan page, somebody's going to point fingers and says, what are these guys doing? And maybe we should do something as well. And that was the whole intention of taking on the club, that if we cannot tell people, let's show them. And whatever they want to take from us, whatever they want to see, that's good. We have seen now, and we were the first team that launched online merchandise sales for our uniforms, our replica shirts. And since then, our nearest competitor, Kaya, has done exactly the same thing. So they immediately went out of trying to set up an online. They got an online partner. They got a clothing chain. And they're now distributing their replica shirts to their fans, because you want your shirts being available to the fans all over the country, and not only within a certain proximity. We also launched a formal sign up for members. So membership, again, every football club in the world has some kind of a supporter club. And and we don't even charge money for it. European clubs, they charge anywhere between, I don't know, 5 and 30 euros or pounds for being a member. We don't even charge for it, because we just want to have a tool where we can connect with them, with our fans. If they like us on Facebook, we have no way of communicating with them. But if they are a member with us, we can send them a newsletter, we can send them offers, we can have a dialogue. And again, since then, 2 of the other clubs are now in the launch phase as well of launching their own membership club. So again, what we're trying to do is we're not giving too much assurances. We just show them by doing, and it looks like that at least some of the clubs, they're taking some of the ideas that we have, and they feel like it would be good for their clubs as well. And I think this is if we are going to do this and the game develops, that would mean that at some point also the financial results of the clubs will improve, and that would make the whole landscape much more sustainable. One thing what we have obviously done in good times, the salaries in the Philippines of the players were extremely high, and now with the pandemic, we were able to bring salaries more in line with revenues and with so we're paying reasonable salaries, and the players are accepting it. So what some of the European clubs are discussing at the moment, where with some of the British clubs, salaries are just outweighing income by so much, and they need to try to bring these numbers a little bit closer. We are already at the stage. So we have really top players at a salary that the club at this stage can afford. If we do better, maybe we're going to start paying more in the future. If not, we would also be able to reduce a little bit more. But it all has to come down to that. If we want to be in the game for a long time, we need to be able to afford it.
I think when you look at the holistic big picture, Eric, it's within your prerogative, of course, to take the steps commercially off the pitch and also on the pitch on the performance side to bring United City Football Club up, which of course has happened since. However, even when you zoom out and look from 10,000 feet above, I think from the sounds of it, you want to provide other Philippine football clubs with a case study of how to run a football club viably and how to make it commercially sustainable within the Philippines and within the wider Asian market. So we've looked at the big picture, but if we were to distill it down to the day-to-day operations of running the club, being president and CEO, how multifaceted is your role on a day-to-day basis, Eric?
At the moment, it's I'm pretty much, because it's also my own investment, very hands-on, very much involved on every aspect of the organization. The only thing that I'm totally staying away from is on the pitch. I was involved with every single player that was recruited. Again, I want to make sure that the players fit the philosophy that we have, that they help us to perform. Obviously, I have my advisors, and we've worked through agents, we worked through other coaches, recommendations from our teams, who we want to sign, who we want to retain, who we want to bring in. But one of the things is, it's just like a parent when your kids are in sports. The parents should always stay out of it, and the on the field matters have been dealt with exclusively by the coaches. So I would not interfere. I will watch the matches, I will enjoy the matches. I might get upset, I might not agree, but I don't want to interfere on that side. But I've put the structure in place so that these guys can run. Everything else, we are at the very first step of setting up and building an organization. So that's the only reason why I'm still involved, because we're setting up the infrastructure in terms of having a proper marketing department, social media, marketing, sponsorship, sales teams, communication, media, and so on and so on. Once this is in place and there's trusted people in there, hopefully I will be able to just take a back seat and start on looking at the big picture again on the development. But we had a helicopter view of where we want to go and what the opportunity was and where we want to go. And then now it's really the setup of the organization, from a legal structure as well as the manpower, and making sure that the ideas that we have are transferred to the people within the organization so that they can carry on. So within the next few months, hopefully I'm going to take a little bit of a backseat on the real day-to-day operations, and look more at the development side of not only the game, but of our club.
Brilliant. And when the full-time whistle goes, Eric, what is the legacy which you and wider ownership group wishes to have left at United City Football Club?
Well, first of all, I hope that this club will remain as a club. If it's not going to be United City, but the UCFC brand will remain. If in 50 years or 100 years this club is still around, that would be absolutely fantastic and amazing. And but what we really hope is that we're going to set as we said before, blueprint, or that we were a little bit of a motivation for other club owners and for other people to get involved in the game. Because we believe that football has such a tremendous potential in the country, and we hope that others will follow a little bit of what we're doing. If we are succeeding, please let everybody follow, because if we are successful, we can make other people successful, but we can only be as successful as everybody else is. If we're the only one pulling the car, it's going to be very difficult. We need a second and a third and a fourth club that comes with us. It wouldn't be good if, like in the Bundesliga now, with Bayern Munich winning 9 titles in a row, or in Italy, I think it's the same. I think Juventus also won 8 or 9 titles in a row. It's not good for the game. So we need to make sure that we get all the other clubs competitive, because we want to have rivalries. We want to have a good game. And if the league is sustainable and the club is still around in 50 or 100 years, and we were the ones to kicking it off, I'm a happy person wherever I am at that time.
And to close, Eric, it's something I mentioned to you off camera. We have a lot of people listening that wish to enter the football industry, be them students or people that are actually wishing to change industries at different parts of their life. If you were to hire somebody and if they had 30 seconds to give you an elevator pitch, what would be some of the things you would wish to hear?
I'm not so sure that you have too much time to congest the content of what somebody is saying. But if somebody doesn't display enthusiasm and has a passion, I mean, in 30 seconds, if somebody is passionate. It doesn't matter what he talks about. But if you remember someone, you usually remember him because there was something that sticks out, and it's usually the passion that somebody displays when they're talking. And passion can move rocks. Passion can do a lot of things. If you don't have the passion, you shouldn't be in football, because football is such a passionate game. Can be good or bad, but you need to have passion for what you do. We don't want to have people in the organizations who need to have a job because they have to provide. We need to have people in the organization that follow a vision. They believe in what we're doing, and they're proud of wearing our badge and carrying our name when I'm not around. So it's really the passion. So we hire first and foremost people that have passion, because skills you can teach. You cannot teach passion. You cannot teach attitude or commitment. So I think if somebody has 30 seconds with me in an elevator and I don't remember you by the time you go out, and there was something missing in your tone of voice or how you displayed yourself, regardless of what the subject in the conversation was.
Fantastic. Terrific way to close. Eric, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on and just get a lens into the ins and outs of running a football club. Not only a football club, but a football club that was on the brink of insolvency, the brink of ruin, and the steps you've taken now to build it back up. Eric, I can only wish you the best of luck for the upcoming season. I'll be keeping glued to the 2021 Philippine Championship, and hopefully when the AFC Champions League begins again, or whenever it does, we'll be sure to follow your guys' progress. But Eric, thank you for coming on, and best of luck for the upcoming season.
Connor, it was a pleasure. Unbelievably good questions. I like this. So I enjoyed this very much. Wish you good luck with your podcast, and it's been a privilege of being on your show. Thank you very much, Connor.
Cheers. Thank you, Eric.